Hey there everyone, have you heard about moon hunters?
We remember something new with each telling.
Moon Hunters is an action role-playing game based around a central theme of mythologies, stories, and how your present actions can influence the future. This, at first glance, is a really cool premise for a video game. It is grouped in the genre of dungeon crawler hack and slash that have this system where each playthrough unlocks new perks and options for future playthroughs. But instead of this just being a part of design or some cheesy generational thing, Moon Hunters integrates the system with the central theme of the game, mythology. Creating a mythology, how a mythology can be interpreted, and how mythology affects the future. Each playthrough of Moon Hunters, lasting about 1 hour, expands on the mythology of the game. You can see directly how your playthrough with the druid character gets added to this hall of heroes, and the choices you made might unlock new ways to explore the game's central repeating narrative. Moon Hunters' conversation with mythology is the most interesting part of the game, which is unfortunate because there's not much else that's interesting. Moon Hunters can be played solo or with up to 4 players. I'll put a disclaimer in my review here in that I've conducted multiple playthroughs solo and with one other player, my cat of course. I never had the chance to play with 3 other people, local or online or otherwise. Guess that means I should get some more cats or something. We've established Moon Hunters is about mythology. It's about a repeating narrative that begins to alter and grow, and this narrative can be done individually or with buddies. But what do you actually do in Moon Hunters? Most of your time, Moon Hunters is a hack and slash role-playing game. Throughout one run of the game, you explore 5 areas. You could classify them as dungeons, I guess, where you wander through, explore, and engage in Diablo-esque combat. Each player you select at the beginning of the game has 3 abilities, fits a different kind of niche or play style, support, ranged, control, magic, etc., and has multiple upgrades you unlock by collecting these little gems from killing the bad guys. This takes up the majority of your time. The characters are varied, and you can set up some simple strategies when you play with a friend. There's a decent amount of enemy types, but Moon Hunters isn't the most nuanced indie hack and slash. I don't know if Moon Hunters is particularly good or bad per se in the combat department if we view it in a vacuum of just pure mechanical design. The problem with Moon Hunters and what you do for most of the time, which is the combat, is that it's not meaningful. I guess we need to jump back to the mythology part here. The narrative of Moon Hunters is straightforward. You're a person, and you worship the Moon Lady Goddess, and she's gone missing after some holiday ritual thing. So you set out to find the Moon Lady Priestess to explain what the frick is going on. So off you go, and you explore in these 5 different areas, and yada yada yada. Some sun cult dude shows up, I guess he's the bad guy, and he says, "You will die in 3 days." So yeah, seems neat, right? Religious conflict, mythology, missing goddess, time limit, intensity. All good ingredients for something compelling. The problem is that you just spend most of your time fighting some random boars and shit. You seldomly fight the sun cult. You fight weird little monsters in these big empty areas that you're wandering around and backtracking and wasting time. The meaningless combat is further exacerbated by the fact that the rest of your time is spent kind of doing some actually interesting things. The game's second system, second layer is about exploring, making decisions as you interact with the world. And it's even more fun with more players, because sometimes choices get split. Sometimes players can respond or interact differently with a given character or event in the game. This is cool stuff. And I can see how playing with 4 people, Moonhunters you could get into some pretty interesting scenarios where maybe the whole party is split on what to do. There's also this campfire thing that happens kind of at the end of each dungeon, and only one person can be assigned to each role. So unless you and your friends or cats coordinate about who's going to go where, you could get some variety there, and there's maybe a little bit of tension. And this is a cool gameplay space in the cooperative environment. The letdown here is that the choices and reputation and the impacts of some of these things can be a little vague. One thing that I kept coming across is that there's like a party leader or something, and it can change in the person who's in the party, and sometimes it's unclear why the game decides to go with one option of choice compared to the other. It's a little vague, and I don't know. As you achieve multiple playthroughs, you figure out how the reputation works, how some choices work, you experience some of the interesting consequences, and some of them are. Things still become unclear. I don't really get why I'm supposed to care. I've played through Moonhunter 6 or 7 times now, spent about 6 hours with the game, and I still don't really know if I beat it. Parts about the story and the actual mechanics of the game remain way too vague. And maybe slight spoilers here, but there seems to be this kind of tension between the moon goddess and the sun god, and well, I don't know, like there's outcomes where the sun cult can be like destroyed or integrated, and I don't care. Am I supposed to care about what happens? I don't really know. I get being cryptic, but there's also incomprehensible. Moonhunters teeters too much down that road for my personal liking. So yeah, meaningless combat and vague storytelling, I guess, are my main criticisms here with Moonhunters. I can't really recommend it to a buddy. It's not a bad game. It gets my neutral/positive if score. If being, if you can play this with friends, go for it. I think it would be a hoot. If you can't, well, I just think you're better off indulging yourself elsewhere.